story that we continue to track. Uncertain weather conditions have wreaked havoc on India's agriculture sector. First, the untimely rains, then the excessive flooding have pushed vegetable prices to levels that we haven't seen in the recent past. A kilo of tomatoes that cost anywhere between 12 to 20 rupees in the month of June is now being sold for over 180 to 260 rupees per kg across the country. The Department of Consumer Affairs has directed the procurement of tomatoes from states like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra for distribution in major consumption centres, including Delhi NCR, in an effort to try and contain prices. Southern and western regions are considered to be major tomato producing states. However, prices even in these states are hovering above 150 rupees per kilo. So what can we expect the government to do by way of intervention? What's next and what is working today? Let's go across and ask the Consumer Affairs Secretary Rohit Kumar Singh. He joins us now on the government strategy to contain prices. Mr. Singh, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Let's start by talking about the government's intervention when it comes to try and cool down prices of tomatoes. There has been a joint effort of the National Cooperative Federation along with NAFED to sell tomatoes at a discounted price. Now, you are procuring largely from 3 states. Can you explain to us what is the quantum of procurement done so far? What is the loss being absorbed by the government? Who is bearing the loss at this point in time? And also, what is the criteria for deciding which are the areas within the country that get access to these subsidized tomatoes?
So you're right, the tomato crop has been affected mainly due to weather disturbances and some whiteflies disease that affected some parts of the country. As you would be aware, it's a seasonal crop. It's grown in different parts of the country at different points in time, and the arrivals at the markets are at different points in time. So if there is a disturbance in a certain area, it affects the arrivals and also affects the prices. Also, over the calendar from January to December, there is certain seasonality associated with tomato prices, and usually in the month of June and July they are higher because of low availability. This year has been a bad year, and since, as you mentioned, prices at some points had gone very high, so the government had to intervene. And since you asked a very good question as to how do we decide which points to intervene, so we would like to inform you that we collect prices from about 518 centers across the country every day on 22 essential commodities. And we analyze that at which points the prices are ruling exceptionally high, and then we procure from the places where prices are low at the mandi arrivals, and then try and infuse into the markets for consumers where the prices are high. So for last few days, we have been infusing at points in Delhi, NCR, Gurgaon, Noida, Lucknow, Varanasi, Allahabad, Patna, Muzaffarpur, Barabanki, Ayodhya, and many other places. You would also appreciate that some states have also done their local interventions, so we don't want to duplicate those efforts because the ultimate idea is to provide relief to the consumers.
Right. You said that you are intervening by way of putting discounted tomatoes in the market where prices are exceptionally high. What is the national average as of today on the back of the prices collected from these 518 centers? What is the national average today, Mr. Singh?
So, national average is still hovering around 120, and the wholesale prices have come down. I'm talking of the retail average. And the wholesale prices have come down after our intervention by 30-40 days. And we are also calibrating at what price we infuse these into the market. We started at 90 rupees per kg. Now we are at 80 rupees. And we have seen a downward trend in the prices at wholesale mandis. And we'll further calibrate in a couple of days.
Okay, you're saying that you've seen a downward trend in the wholesale level. But at the retail level, one is picking up from ground reports that there hasn't really been much of an impact as far as the retail level is concerned. So at this point in time, do you intend to continue this intervention? Is there a timeline for how long you will continue with this intervention? And are you likely to extend your outreach as well beyond the cities that have so far benefited from these discounted tomatoes?
Yeah, so we'll continue our intervention till the time the prices come to reasonable levels, and we will follow the same process. Of course, as we are seeing a downward trend. So till prices reach a reasonable level, we'll continue this trend. And regarding the question about which points to infuse these products is again determined on the daily analysis of these 518 centers and where the prices are ruling high. So that is the algorithm we follow.
Okay, so what is the quantum which qualifies as exceptionally high? Because you said those are the regions that are being given the tomatoes at the subsidized rates, at discounted rates. So what is that the price that you consider as exceptionally high?
So there are two parameters that we consider. One is the absolute price and one is the delta. What is the difference in the price compared to what it was last year at the same point? So when we have a particular formula and when we see that both these points, the absolute price and the delta compared to the previous year. So when we see that these two are resulting in an exceptional pain point, those are the areas where we start infusion. Of course, there are logistical challenges also, so that also has to be kept in mind.
Yeah, I would imagine that is factored in as well. But how much has been procured so far? And what is the cost of procurement? And what is the loss that is being absorbed on a kilogram at this point in time?
So I would not like to use the word loss because we have a fund mandated by the government which is called the Price Stabilization Fund. And that fund is precisely for this purpose. To infuse commodities in the market for price correction. So I think as we speak, around 300 metric tons have been procured and infused. I would also like to assure the consumers through your channel that very soon arrivals are expected in Madhya Pradesh, Aurangabad and some areas of Maharashtra. And I think by first week of August, the prices will start considerably coming down. So the intervention requirement may not exist. However, as I said earlier, as long as there is requirement, government would intervene because government is committed to provide relief to the consumers to the extent possible.
Just one quick follow-up question before I move away from tomatoes. It's hard to do that though, given the current circumstances. You said 300 metric tons has so far been procured and infused. What has been the average procurement price for the government?
So we, both the government agencies procure it through an auction from the mandis, and it's based on the most competitive price that we get for that quality. You also should realize that, these are to be transported over long distances. So we also look and ascertain certain quality. So it could be anywhere in the region of 100 rupees, 120 rupees, 130 rupees, depending on the day and the time where we procure it from.
Okay, so anywhere between 100 to 130 rupees per kg, that could have been the procurement price for the government so far. You anticipate that things could improve by the first week of August. That's the expectation at this point. But do you believe that given what you are seeing by way of prices across other commodities, and particularly I want to talk about tur, is there a need for any government intervention at this point in time?
Yes, so tur, because of the comparatively low crop output this year, and we also have some import dependence every year on tur. So this year our import dependence would be a little higher, and that is why the prices are ruling high. And we have some buffer of tur, and in fact, coincidentally from today, we've started auctioning and infusing the tur from our buffer stock into the market, and it would help cool down the prices. Also, we import tur from two geographies. One is Myanmar and one is East African countries. Both the crops arrive at different points in time. So from East African countries, the crops will be arriving by the middle and or the end of the next month, which is August. And once those arrivals start, the domestic prices will start cooling down. I would also like to mention here, just for the benefit of viewers, that there's a certain seasonality in terms of consumption, both in tur and other commodities. And throughout India, the festival season starts now. The Sawan has started, then Janmashtami and other things, and Ganpati in Maharashtra. And every region will have some festivals till we reach the point in Diwali. So these are traditionally high consumption months for all commodities, all pulses. So there is a certain seasonality in terms of consumption-based demand in these months, and hopefully the arrivals from Africa and what we distribute through from our buffer in the market will help lower the prices of tur in the market.
Okay. What is the current buffer stock that you are sitting on as far as tur dal is concerned, and what has been the price spike that we have seen specifically for tur?
So all India average is about 132, 130 in that range, 135, and it's considerably higher than what it was at this point in time. But we will try and pull in imports quickly, and we are also looking at for future other geographies where tur can be grown, because from East African countries the local consumption there is almost nil. Everything that is grown there comes to India. So we are also looking at Brazil and some new countries in Africa to help us get the requirement of tur. On parallel, since we produce considerably large amount of chana and we have about 40 lakh tons of buffer stock, we also want to promote consumption of chana, because at the moment chana consumption is about 46% of the total consumption. Chana is a healthy product, it's a healthy pulse, and it is full of protein and helps contain diabetes and other health benefits. So I think we have very actively started promoting the consumption of chana. It's got very tasty products. In fact, yesterday in our Chintan Shivir, we had a lunch only based on dishes out of chana, and we all found it very, very useful and very tasty.
Well, that's good to hear, Mr. Singh. But I wanted to also ask you how the government is assessing the situation now with Russia withdrawing from the grain agreement that was inked, and the concern and the worries around that. Also, what the government is likely to do by way of intervention to mitigate the risks associated with this deal falling through.
I think in terms of rice and wheat, there is no risk. We have considerable amount of the quantities in both the commodities. In terms of food security, we are okay. Only in this particular pulse, that is tur, there was a worry with, I think, with imports arriving from Africa. That is likely to be sorted out by next month.
Okay. I want to go back to tomatoes because you are procuring from states like Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. But even in those states, I mean, Mumbai, for instance, tomato prices still in excess of 150 rupees or thereabouts. But you're not actually distributing the subsidized tomatoes in these regions from the list that I can see so far. Why is that the case?
So it's, as I said, it's based on our analysis of the absolute price and what is the delta, how the prices actually behave in this month in previous years. So if we find the situation to be acute, then only we intervene. In Maharashtra, anyway, from Aurangabad and other nearby places, the arrivals are likely to be very high very soon. So there is no immediate worry on Maharashtra.
Okay, by the
urban centers, prices are generally higher than wholesale.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it better than I do. But
urban centers continue to face challenging times. Mr. Singh, before I let you go, some of the measures that have already been undertaken by the government, including for tomatoes, for chana, for tur, but any other measures on the anvil at this point in time to ensure that there is price stability across different commodities?
So we are also looking at, the perishability issue in both onions and tomatoes. And onions have caused some pain in the past, maybe a decade ago. So we have procured almost 3 lakh tons for our buffer this year. And we are also pushing for early Kharif and late Kharif, the calibration in terms of the quantities that will be available at the end of the year. So hopefully by doing that, the availability of onions both from our buffer and from the arrivals of early Kharif in September and subsequent kharifs, we'll be able to sail through without any price rise in onions. And as you would appreciate, last year the prices of onions did not go beyond about 35 rupees in retail, and the production of onions last year was about 320 lakh tons, and this year also it's expected to be around the same number. So we don't foresee any trouble in onion availability as well as affordability in this year.
Well, ironically, it's not the onions that are making consumers cry this time around. It is the tomatoes, but the hope and the expectation is that by the first week of August, we will start to see things ease on that front. And of course, the government intervention is likely to continue till such time as that happens. Mr. Singh, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18 to take us through the government strategy to try and bring down prices which are escalating at this point in time across tomatoes and certain other commodities. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. We will head into a short break, but coming up next, there is a lot happening when we talk about Deal Street. Sheela Foam to acquire Kurlon for over 2,000 crore rupees. Tata Chemicals decides to hike its stake in Rallis India. All the action from Deal Street when we return.